Have you ever been curious about an untold story of a relative? Maybe something happened in the past that they never spoke about. Maybe you wanted to touch on abuse, or being exiled, or being afraid or unsure. Maybe finding yourself. We're going to touch on a story just like that. Come join us. So I'm Dan.
And I'm Nick, folks.
We're old friends dissecting one topic at a time. People, technology, media, we've got it all covered.
Each discussion here is a deep dive into our unique perspective. The taboo, forbidden subjects, they're all on the chopping block, baby. We don't pander to popular opinion. We might even get a little bit dirty.
Warning, this podcast may contain mature language and sexual content, and is for infotainment purposes only.
So join us. Have a good time.
Open up your ear holes, because we're going to fondle your follicles. All right. We're here with a special guest. Steve.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Yeah.
Well, I'm Nick. You're
And
Dan.
I'm Dan.
Who is...
And I'm Steven.
Oh, Steven.
Yes.
Why screw that
That's
up?
awesome. It's a guest episode. Guest episodes are actually my favorite.
Oh,
Why wear
cool.
My shirt. Haters gonna hate.
This is my first time being a guest on an episode, so thank
really?
you for having me.
Fantastic.
Oh man, I hope he doesn't ruin it now, folks.
Oh,
I think he'll be good.
okay, all right.
So let's tell everyone where Steven's from. Steven has his own podcast he did, right?
Yeah. A
Your
quick
first
9-episode
podcast?
series.
Yeah, that's right. It's just a 9-episode series, The Story of Sandra Maries. We just wrapped up not too long ago.
It's pretty sweet. Now,
Mhm.
because we want people to check it out themselves, we won't just rehash the whole story. People check it out. We recommend it. It's super good. But it's essentially about your mother, right?
Yeah, Sandra Maries. That's her first and middle name. Yeah. So it's about her life story and everything that she went through. Essentially, growing up as a lesbian girl and then being lured into the Mormon religion to eventually go through conversion therapy and then getting into an abusive marriage and how she escaped the abusive marriage.
Yeah. So essentially a pretty heavy story.
Yeah, it's some really heavy,
super
heavy
heavy.
stuff.
But that's totally cool because I'm not usually always a fan of that, and I listen to it, and it's a good read. Read.
Good
It's
listen.
a good listen.
Yeah.
It was a
It's
good
good
listen.
read.
It was-
Yeah, a good listen, good read. Mhm.
It was
Broke it
catching,
up in
too.
nice chunks too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that it was 25-ish minute segments. It kept it, fresh. Like, because I couldn't be like, an hour and 8 minutes. Like, come on, I'm driving to work. But like those segments, it was nice. It was,
Yeah.
well, not nice, because it was a heavy material and it was
Yeah.
about some serious stuff. But it was good. It was manageable. I liked it. It was well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. The editing in the beginning was kind of impressive. Like, you brought all the sound clips together and it sounded smooth and clean, and I think that's what caught me.
That.
Nice
And
hook.
there was the commercial from the 50s about how homosexuality is a disease,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the voices in there are all Mormon apostles.
Is that a real commercial?
Yeah, it was a real commercial. I can't remember where I found it from, but yeah.
I've seen that before. I thought it was like a meme or like a joke or something.
No, it actually wasn't. It was like a propaganda film, and the whole film is all about it. And there's this boy Billy that he gets like,
Poor Billy.
yeah, he gets attacked by a homosexual man. So
Oh, I feel like I have seen this now because I thought it was a joke. I feel like it's done in the same way that the don't listen to jazz music and smoke a marijuana cigarette. You'll
oh
turn
yeah,
into a
was that
crazy
Reefer
hippie.
Madness?
Yes, Reefer
Yeah,
Madness.
it is kind of. It's sort of
In the
done like
vein.
that, but I don't think it's a joke. It's a legitimate.
But Reefer Madness is a joke.
Yeah, I think Reefer. Well, I don't know.
Now I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The 50s were a crazy time.
Yeah, and I mean, and I was stoned when I watched Reefer Madness, so I mean, it's just-
The comedy just writes itself.
Yeah.
So I just want to touch on the heaviness because I feel like, yeah, I'm
Nick is
putting my
worried.
drink.
He's the lighthearted one.
No, I'm not worried. I wanted to get it out in the open because I feel like if we're having a good time, we're all laughing, then we're like, anyway, conversion therapy is
Yeah,
terrible.
because
Oh
everyone's
yeah,
gonna be like,
mhm.
But
And
like,
it's a hard thing. I see what you're saying because it could be hard to maybe joke or be lighthearted around heavy topics. You don't want to
Mhm.
give off the wrong
Right. I don't want to be like,
Depression.
we're laughing at it. But
Yeah.
I do want to touch on it. Like, that stuff's
Uh-huh.
crazy. They tried to
It is
change
crazy.
physiologically who you were, psychologically who you were by shocking you.
I think in the story you said that like
Hypnotherapy.
they made your mom like try to masturbate to men. Like they gave her like naked
Well,
pictures of men or something.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Naked pictures of men with erections. And
Oh.
with erections, I did note
Yeah.
that, and I even made a note. I was like, "Wow, what if it was like flaccid? Like, no, this man
No,
has to be
they had erection.
full
Yeah,
on."
and for her, that was the first time she had seen a penis. You know,
Crazy.
so
And that was
no
completely
one
against the religion too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, pornography is one of the worst things you could do in the religion. So, and masturbation definitely is.
So in this religion, though, didn't she get in trouble for like bringing a coffee can somewhere because you weren't allowed to drink coffee? So we're
Uh-huh.
strict enough where we're saying, hey, no kissing before marriage, light pecking on the
Uh-huh.
cheek. Don't drink coffee. Don't look at your neighbor. Don't utter any bad words. But
Mhm.
also, we're gonna cure you. Here's some pornography. I got a
Yeah.
guy with a raging erection. I thought
Yes,
that was the craziest thing
It's
I've
pretty
ever
crazy. For me, I'm just wondering about the guy who went and collected the porno. You know, like where did he get it from?
I don't
You
know.
know?
And is there an approval process? Like he was like looking at like 8 pictures of him. He's like, no,
Mm,
that
Church
one,
not
vault.
this one.
He's
that's a
spinning a
keeper.
giant
it's a
door
bunch
and
of
just porno everywhere.
Yeah, it's a bunch of conversion therapy guys. So you know they're probably gay, and so they're like,
guess.
"Ooh, yeah, we get to find a picture of some penis," you know.
But is that I don't even know. There was a committee, like it wasn't handed down from the Pope or like what's the Pope version? Is there like a
The Pope
I know there are
version
bishops.
of is the prophet is what it's called.
Okay.
So
Is he
there's
like the head bishop, I guess?
yeah, he's like the head bishop. He's like
Okay.
the Pope, and he's the
Okay.
prophet of the church, and then there's 12 apostles under him.
Oh shit, that actually sounds
And
cool. Well, I mean, like
yeah,
cool and like a
cool in like a skull
gangster.
and bones kind
Yeah,
of a way,
yeah,
you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, and they're all, I mean, I think a prerequisite is you have to be like 99 to be one of the 12 apostles or something, because they're all
That
just so old.
sounds about right.
Which is, I think a lot of people probably credit that for the intolerance or the things they don't like about the religion, or the leaders are just super old. You know, they were around when you were supposed to hit your wife. You know what I mean? Like,
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
about that.
they were young before the civil rights movement even happened. You know,
Right.
I mean, yeah,
Right.
they're not supposed to. Yeah,
Well,
so
that's probably why they elect them, because at 99, you're pretty controllable. You're not doing a lot of change. Why would you? I mean,
yeah.
you've already made it that far.
And
God
that was
bless.
something that we struggled with a lot with the podcast, because we didn't want it to be like a talking a bunch of ass on the Mormon religion, you know, and coming down on it by any means. Even though,
Are you practicing? Do you like? You seem like you're
oh
away from
no,
it, but you're still in
yeah,
Utah,
no,
right?
not at all. Yeah, I'm still in Utah. No, I haven't been practicing for many years, for well over 20
You were
years.
raised Mormon though. Like
I was
how
raised Mormon, yeah.
How active? Like church?
I was fairly
Sundays, or-
active, you know, but I would slough the Mormon church, because they have like 3 meetings. So I would go to the meeting that I was in with my parents, and then the other meetings I would sneak home.
Nice.
Consequently, my father, or Mr. Smiles from the podcast, would
Smiles.
also sneak home, and he would watch pornography
Wow. Look at
during
that.
the middle meetings of
Everybody's sinning. Everybody out here sinning.
they're just sinning, man. And it was back in the 90s, where satellite dishes, you know, so the TV signal would come through all of the televisions in the house.
Scrambled and frozen on the porno, and then you'd be like, "Hey, Dad!"
Yeah,
and you hit the
you know,
button.
so whatever one person's watching, all the other TVs that are hooked into the little coaxial cable, they see the same thing. So I would, you know, record that stuff, and in junior high I became a pornography salesman. You know?
Oh, nice!
And,
Really?
yeah, and I mean, this was before the internet, and
look at that. That's
right around, yeah. So I mean, I made some pretty good money off of that.
That's wild. Can I ask you what you would charge? Like, are you making a VCR copy of this?
Yeah, VCR copy, and I would just let it run whenever I knew he was watching it. Eventually, I found the password to the channels. Yeah, and then I just recorded it myself.
What could you get for a pop on like a video?
I do like $15, $20
that's
a VHS.
nice.
Yeah.
You can slide that across the table. It's in a book bag. You're like, got what I need.
Yeah.
He's like, I got what you need.
And when one of the kids was dumb enough to leave it in his VCR, and you know, then my dad, he couldn't really say anything to me about it, you know, because it's like,
got him.
yeah, shit, I'll punish my son, but I never got in trouble.
Boom.
Yeah, kind of strange, but
That's what it is, man.
mhm.
Word. That's wild. That's awesome. I didn't even know we were going there.
Yeah, I don't know how we got there.
No,
I was a porn salesman, so there you go.
Do you do that currently, or you've moved on to other
No,
things?
I've moved on out of the porn industry. That was
Cool.
a
That's fine. That's fine.
yeah,
It's
that was just
not
a juvenile
booming
thing for me.
industry in Utah.
No, it's not very big in Utah.
Is
They're
it-
into some really weird stuff.
So-
is it weird that like California is the center of the porn world, and that's like real? How close is it to California? I have no idea.
It's like a 12-hour
Stone's throw?
drive.
Oh, that's
It's a
pretty
12.
far.
You got Nevada in between, so you have Vegas and then
Okay.
LA.
Is it weird that it's near Vegas?
Kinda. I mean, it's kind of inside of these mountains. It's sort of encased in these mountains, kind of like
Okay.
certain areas of Colorado are. So you feel like you're in a fishbowl a lot of times, and you are kind of protected from the rest of the world, which is probably what founders of the place like so much
We're
about
going
it.
for. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that maybe
Yeah,
that was
you
the
were gonna say
origin of
something.
recording for you. It was your passion for recording things.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We do notice all the nice gear around you.
Yeah, I had to set it up so I could show off my speaks and
Nice.
my Blue Yeti microphone.
He's being modest. They're called monitors when they're that expensive. Okay, because
Yeah,
speakers have EQ balance issues. These are
Uh-huh.
pure EQ distributors. They
Yes.
have They don't have coaxial cables. Excuse me. I got that from you, I guess. They have XLR cables. Okay, you got to plug these bad boys in like they're legit.
These guys are balanced. They got, they're active. They have crossovers built into
Oh
them.
my god, do yours pop every time you turn on the computer?
Yeah, they do, and it kind of pisses me off.
It does. And every time I
I
do like a
spend
Windows
good
restart,
money for these speakers,
yeah, and I'm like, oh, a Windows restart, and I'm like, and I'm like, God damn, I should have turned them off, but I don't think to turn them off. It does bug me.
Yeah, I mean, I have like this little headphone monitor thing, and that's supposed to be nice too. And that, I can A/B between the two monitors.
Nice.
But yeah, anyway,
that's nice.
don't get me going on gear. We'll just talk the whole time about gear.
I know. Well, Dan, you're a gearhead, right?
So I'm an electrical engineer, so I've done a little bit with like fiddling with signals and stuff, but
Oh,
I go on the cheap. I try to do things myself, buy the cheapest thing and like test it out. Just get a variety.
Test it out. And do you ever get in there and like operate on it and like make your own little modifications and pull out the soldering iron and stuff?
Yeah, that was my job for like 10 years to like repair
How many
things.
soldering iron jobs have you done? I bet you this guy's done like 2.
I did a soldering iron job last week, actually.
Did you?
Tapping into the communications on a circuit board.
Now, what were you doing? Were you soldering it and resoldering, or were you just unsoldering some, or were you just connecting some? Come on, give me a
Soldering
little more
cables
detail.
into is called a SPI port, which has like 4 different wires to it.
Okay,
It's comms.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean that's in the same field as like recording engineers. They're basically electricians.
Yeah.
So
is this
Steven? You did mention. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Is this the first? Like, this isn't the first podcast that you've recorded, right? You've done multiple other audio recordings.
Yeah. So actually, I've done one podcast before this. It was a podcast with my brother called 100 Freakin' Films, and we just did
100 freaking films.
100 Freakin' Films. Yeah, we watched and reviewed 100 freaking movies.
You got to 100?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Here.
We almost lost our.
The movie Rubber?
The movie Rubber? No, we didn't watch Rubber.
Oh,
what is that a new movie? A newer one that's been out? Because
20.
I don't know how recent, but Nick and I reviewed that, and we got copyright
for that one.
It's about a tire that comes to life and is very vengeful, and he tries to kill all the townspeople.
Power to explode things with its mind.
Oh wow! I think I've seen pictures of this.
Yeah,
I saw some. Yeah, I saw some promotional material of this tire going around. I thought that was a joke. That was a movie.
It was very well done. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys got hit for that?
Yeah, we paid to rent it. Well, Dan paid to rent it. We watched it and we figured it was fair rights. Like, let's josh on it. Let's tell jokes. Let's talk about the movie. How many hours was it up for? Like 8 hours.
Yeah,
and it just got like flagged and shut down for copyright.
In our lack of defense, we did have the video and the audio stream in our own stream. So
yeah, but
okay. Well, I mean,
it was in like 640. Who's gonna watch?
I did blur it and add like a watermark, and then we tried to talk very much commentary over top of it. Who wants to fight that
Oh
though?
Caught us.
man.
Caught us.
Copyright law.
Busted us
Uh,
up. But anyway, we did notice with all this recording software, all this previous experience, like what were you doing with you record some music?
yeah. So yeah, I've been an audio guy for many years now. Going back into, if you wanted to relate it to the Sandra Maries story, since in that timeline, kind of, I actually went and lived with her in Los Angeles when I was 17 years old, and she was like, "You're living in LA now, so you got to go work in the industry somewhere." So I just went and interned at a recording studio, and kind of just that blew up my mind, and I just got my start there as an intern, and then eventually a runner, getting people their 2 a.m. Taco Bell, and then eventually an assistant engineer. And
What anyone big we'd recognize from these places?
it was more the record labels. The biggest one was that I actually got to meet the artist was Jimmy Eat World, Jim
Yeah.
Atkins. Yeah,
Cool.
he was a super nice guy. It was a mixing studio, so there was a lot of famous artist stuff that came into the studio, but the artist didn't bother showing up usually.
Gotcha. Right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
That's
but a
pretty
lot
sweet.
of really famous engineers and producers that most people wouldn't recognize their names. The sound guy always gets the
Shafted.
shaft.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Word. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I recorded bands for many years, and did a lot of live sound and stuff too, and just recently started thinking about the idea of getting involved in podcasts, because I realized, like, holy shit, this is like everything. I could totally do all this. It's just
Mhm.
manipulating audio, so it's been really fun, and then there's this local podcast network, H13. That's just a few of us right now that we're trying to get off the ground. And so, in addition to Sandra Marie, I did, and then through my brother and some other people I know, we did 100 Freakin' Films, and then now we're on to trying to get a couple more shows off the
Red
ground.
chair, red something?
Yeah, the stories from the Red Chair.
Okay.
With
What's that gonna be? Now is this a preview or a past
Yeah,
view according to when Dan releases this episode?
yeah. Well, it's more in development to see if we really collect enough stories,
Okay.
which is just stories from people who have been through like unbearably trying circumstances, and sort of tell their stories of survival, their stories of um, like, how do you find hope, and how do you find a way to move on and keep living when you've been through so much crap,
Hmm.
um, and
Was
so there,
was that the
yeah, there's
origin
been a
of
few.
your? Sorry, was that the origin of like your mom's story? Like, how did you get that original idea to sit down with your mom and go through
Yeah.
some horrifying stories from her past?
Well, she's been since I've kind of been. I also went to film school and stuff, so she's been wanting to make a movie about her story, specifically the conversion therapy part of it, for a long time. And she's also written a few drafts of a book that she's continuing to work on, and she's gearing towards the conversion therapy part of the book. And so we've always talked about collaborating on something. And then it was actually my wife's idea. We were just laying in bed, and I was telling her stories about my mom and my dad, and she's like, "Fuck." Oh, there's the first F word. And then
That's good.
I'm glad it was me.
Gravity,
I
some
think that's
gravity there.
appropriate.
It's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine.
And
We do not
yeah.
condone this. This episode might never air. This is not our material. Oh my
I'm sorry. It was your guest. He didn't know.
God.
I'm sure you could put a beep in there. But she said, "Oh, you should really do a podcast about your mom." And I'm like, ding. And then just talked to the H13 guys, and then talked to my mom about it. And I saw if she came up and took a bus up here, actually, from Idaho, and we chatted for 2 days, and that's the whole podcast, was just 2 days of us talking.
So I gathered that from the whole thing, and I even gathered that she was writing a book because she wanted to read the one part in like the later parts, and she read it. It was very well written, very eloquent. Did she do? Was she like an English major?
No, she wasn't
Okay.
English. Maybe she took a couple classes in LA.
There was something poetic and like well written about that whole thing, and
Very
I
well
imagine the
spoken,
rest
yeah.
of her book is probably also well written.
Yeah, it's a lot like that, and it's pretty. I think that's why she was able to speak it so clearly. She's just been waiting to tell this story for a long time,
She spoke it very clearly, and what's weird is
Yeah.
so go through how this whole happened. You know the story ahead of time. Did you know, like, what percentage of her talking were you able to predict easily? You're like, I know 90%. I know 50%. Were you like, holy shit, I didn't know 40% of this?
Yeah, well, most of the stuff before me, I had no idea before I was born.
Okay.
So her early life, I really didn't know, and I really
So it was
kind of
blind, right?
yeah, I'm like, I'm not that good of a son, you know. And in doing so, we've had a surprising amount of people have contacted us about this show, you know, and they've been touched by it and stuff. And a lot of people have said that like this made them realize they don't know their own parents or something.
Yeah.
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 But
There's a layer
I
to
really,
it. That like when
I
you're
guess
listening to
when
the stories, you're thinking about your own connection to your own parents, and then like you're like I could
Mhm.
sense your reaction, but then you withhold it. So I'm always like kind of curious what you're thinking as she's telling you the
Mhm.
story.
And as the occasional tears that she cries, like, what am I doing, you know?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of editing that went on. So there was a lot of funny
Right.
moments
Right.
that
Okay.
perhaps I should have left in there for that
Yeah,
reason.
maybe.
Like where after she gets done crying, we break up in laughter for a while, you know, and
Right.
that would have been cute, but I don't know. We were working with this musician as well, and so it was just this thing, you
A
know.
time
But
thing. Too,
yeah, just kind
probably.
of
Right.
an edit, just an editing thing, you know, a bunch of editing to it.
Huh.
So the other thing I wondered is, so she comes in. It wasn't in anyone's house. It was in the studio. So she had to come into the studio and record these blocks. Was the
Uh-huh.
block like a 2-hour block one day, or 3-hour block one day, a 3-hour block the next day, and that was it?
Yeah, it was like 3 hours and then a break and then a lunch and then another couple hours and then the same thing the next day.
Next day.
So
Okay.
I think all in all we had like 8 or 9 hours of
Okay.
raw material that we had to go through and splice and
It's a
put
lot.
together.
And what's crazy is I imagine you gave her the instructions and everything else, but it's like she was talking to you, but not talking to you. Like she was comfortable enough to say all the things she had to say. Like she knew what she was going to say. It was very well, not planned,
It's
very well.
not
She'd
scripted
gone over
either.
this in her head a bunch of times.
Yeah, it seemed like it was very
Mhm.
fluid. It's like even to do it in
Yeah.
2 days is kind of amazing to have those fluid stories and
Yeah.
to be it like all tied together in a nice
Mhm.
continuity
Was
to
this
it.
build up? Like this is a long time coming? Is this like
Yeah, something that she's just been wanting to tell for a long time. And then she also brought the most recent draft of her book. And then the night before I didn't even sleep. I just stayed up and read her whole book and made notes. And so as we were talking, I was like, hey, let's, you know, the only real direction we had is let's just try to go chronologically through this.
right? That makes total sense. Yeah.
And then her recordings just sort of built the whole podcast just based off of how her recording was, which is pretty cool.
For anyone listening right now that hasn't listened, just check it out. I mean, otherwise, this whole episode seems weird and odd, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, I guess so.
Check it
If
out.
you
Story of
haven't heard it, it's
Sandra.
like, what are they even talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, it probably sounds good. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on.
you could just type in Story of Sandra into podcast and it'll pop up, or you could check it
Are you
out.
the top Google for Story Sandra?
I don't know about Google. Yeah, I think so. And I think
Nice.
you actually, if you in iTunes, if you put story of or something, that just one of those, it pops
Are
up
you
pretty
Story of
quick.
S? You got you.
Story of S, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Okay. Hey, top S. That's good.
yeah, Story of S, it's on there. And we
You
actually were on the
are
new and noteworthy just recently too, which was crazy.
number
Nice,
4
nice.
slot after Sandra Bland.
Sandra Bland. Oh,
Sandra
okay.
She's
Bland's
stealing
been
the
Sandra
spotlight.
Bland, honestly.
Oh man, who is
Honestly,
she?
she's got to get.
I gotta listen to her.
She died in county jail in Waller, Texas. I think she was beaten, and she might have been pregnant.
Jesus. Oh,
Yeah,
my
so
God.
that's
Oh, Jesus.
What's up
equally
with these Sandra
disturbing.
stories? They're all dark.
So, real quick to touch on your father, Mr. Smiley.
Yes.
Is he passed?
Yeah, he passed, which was part of the motivation for all of this too.
Right. I caught that,
Mhm.
but I didn't know. I wanted to make sure before I said anything. So,
Mhm.
how did he pass? I don't know if that was
He
mentioned.
died of. Oh yeah, I never talked about that. He died of pancreatic cancer.
Oh,
brutal,
shit.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, he went down. It was crazy. That's a pretty bad one.
It's quick.
I hadn't known anything about it. I think it's like the second worst cancer to leukemia.
God damn it, dude. One of my coworkers just got diagnosed like 3 months ago with it. And I was like, God, you'll be fine. I said it to him because I didn't research it. Someone's like, yeah, that was a bad one. And I was like,
Yeah, it's pretty bad now. I mean, there are the survival. It's just
right.
brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially if you're young and everything, and you're not a hateful maniac, you could probably live a
You're
little
better off.
longer. Yeah.
So here's my only question, and I knew this was going to come up. I knew you're a
Okay.
cool dude, and I know I like the story. Like, I feel like it was a railroad job on Neil, Mr. Smiley.
Yeah,
And I
you
don't
know.
and I don't think that's wrong, but it from the story perspective, right? Like it's like,
Uh-huh.
hey, buddy, we're railroading this right up your behind.
Yeah,
And
I'm glad you picked up on that because
whether
it
he
kind of was that.
deserved it or not,
Yeah. Uh,
and I imagine he deserved it from the stories.
uh,
But it comes off as like very like
Well, it's one sided,
I almost say like
obviously.
you're
Is
yeah,
it is.
it's one
But
sided.
you
He's
mentioned it
the
many times. This is a story of
yeah.
Sandra, no one else. So you
Uh,
precursor it. You kinda you mention that. Like there's
uh,
more details here and there, but ultimately this guy is the douche, the king douche.
yeah. She's the protagonist and he's the antagonist. You know,
Right.
he's the villain,
And
and I
he
really
is.
did. I wanted to villainize him a lot, and but the thing that where I'm glad you brought that up is because his in retrospect, I wish I would have made his character a little more colorful and a little more in depth because he wasn't just a complete psychopath like he's portrayed. He was actually a very nice
You
man
mentioned some ups
sometimes.
and
he
downs.
he seemed like he was
Yeah, the
very
ups and downs.
selective with like when he
Mhm.
hit your mom and like how he hit her, and then like it also seemed
Yeah,
like you guys weren't really aware of it until things got really bad, and then you were completely aware of it. And you're the oldest, right?
kind of. No, I'm the middle
You're the
child,
middle
so.
child. Okay.
Mhm.
The twins, were they
Yeah, the
before you?
twins came before, and then me, and then my younger sister. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's really weird with abusive situations. We were all aware of it. I think that my mom would have liked to think that we weren't, and she tried to shield us from it,
Hmm.
but we knew it was going on.
Did other people in your like immediate family know? Or they? It seemed like her
No,
parents weren't aware of it at all.
nobody knew, and that's the thing that I actually interviewed my sister recently. I was
Which one?
thinking about adding
The
adding
youngest?
the oldest one, the
Oh,
one
the
of the
oldest.
twins.
Okay, okay.
I was thinking about adding an episode with her because she talks about what she thought was left out from the podcast, and
Huh.
it's how charming he was. He was this very charming man,
Hmm.
and you just wouldn't even know it and I think that's why I felt so compelled to tell his story because if not that I'm trying to like out him to people who knew him, but it's just
You could add
everybody
perspectives
would have been
on
like,
like the color of what your father was. You could do a whole
yeah,
series
it's
on
just
just different takes on
yeah,
how they thought he was.
he could be his own series for sure. And I mean, he was just insane. I mean, the stuff, his life and everything, he had many lives in his life and he achieved all sorts of different, really great successes. And he, went very far in a lot of ways, but it was so charming that anytime we tried to tell anybody about it, even when we would get
They wouldn't
You
believe it.
dismiss it.
police involved, the police would wind up getting mad at us and thinking that we
Huh.
were just misbehaving
Do
teenagers.
you have specific stories on that?
Um, well, let's see. I was at my friend's house, playing in a band with my friend, and he called me up. And again, back in the time before cell phones, where one phone is connected
Yeah.
to the
Like high
same line.
school region?
Yeah, so somebody else can pick up on another phone in the house and
Mm-hmm.
hear who's on the phone.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
100%. Cover the
yeah,
earpiece. Cover the earpiece,
yeah,
fellas.
yeah. So my buddy was on the phone and he was hearing this stuff my dad was saying to me, and he was just like, he told me he
Unbelievable.
was going to kill me. He's just getting into, verbal abuse. Just really nasty verbal abuse. And so my buddy was just, I wasn't. I was like, yeah, this is just my dad. But he's like, we have to call the cops. He threatened to kill you, man. And I'm like, yeah. So we called the cops, and the cops got there, and I had to go home with my dad, and I was reprimanded by the
It's the
cop
worst,
because
dude.
I was just a rebellious teenager who went
It's
to my
even
friend's
worse that
house.
you didn't even call the cops. Your friend was like, "Hey, we should do this," and you're like, "Yeah, we don't have
Yeah.
to," and he did,
Uh,
and you're like, "Oh boy."
a lot of situations like that, and then there were situations of social workers coming to school, and my older siblings would be afraid to
Tell the story.
say. So we never had our story straight,
Because everyone
because
was trying to either protect both parents or one parent or
or
half a
one
parent.
parent,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah, yeah.
that's I think that's what happens. It's so weird. That happens so commonly when I've looked into other people's stories too.
Yeah.
It's just for some reason when you are abused, you want to protect your abuser. You guys were saying the Homestock
Yeah.
syndrome from your
Wait.
previous episode.
He must have listened to the right episode.
The Stockholm
Stockholm
syndrome.
syndrome. Yeah.
It's kind of like that. I mean, I know it's not, but it's like that same brain mechanism that
Yeah.
you go through.
It's almost like you shelter yourself in this bubble of what you believe reality is, and then it takes like someone from outside the bubble to just like slowly crack away at what actual life is like.
Yeah, and it just
think about it. I mean, your whole life is one thing. Someone's telling you it's shit. It's shit. I mean, you get used to shit. You get used to telling you're not shit, and then someone's like, "Hey, there's other life out here," and you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I don't just want to go out here." Someone's like, "No, no, this person's bad," and you're like, "I'm gonna pull you out," and you're like, "Whoa, I don't want to just get pulled out into the other shit." You know what I mean? Like, your idea of life is that there's shit out there, and there's shit here, there's shit there. It's shitty everywhere. Why would I go out there? I'm just gonna restart my shitty. Is almost the thought process I would imagine with someone with Homestock syndrome.
Yeah, with Homestock syndrome. And I just think it's also, yeah, you just get, especially if you're raised in it. I think that's why the cycle of abuse, they call it, just goes on from one generation to another. And that's something else, you know, in my story with the abuse is that I just hated this man, you know, I just with a vengeance. And I would write like, I'll never be like him. I'll never be like him. And then as I grew and got into relationships and things, I found myself verbally abusing my girlfriends. And I'm like, oh, you know, I just became what I hated, you know? And that was a really hard thing to...
Can I ask you, not to get, you don't have to get too detailed, but like, what do you mean? Like, you'd be yelling at him? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the thing. I wish, you know,
I don't need the word for word, but like what?
Just kind of like really demeaning. I would go for
sarcastic, cutting,
but I would go for the things that I knew would hurt them the most. So things that in intimate relationships you only share with your intimate partner, that you get into with them. You know, turn things around on them and make it seem like they're doing something wrong or that they're responsible for my anger or
their vulnerabilities.
Yeah, their vulnerabilities, keeping them vulnerable in a way that I can like control them somehow.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy to see how that naturally came up out of me.
To you.
And then it brought up all these ideas of nature versus nurture, you know, like how much
a lot on our show.
Yeah, I like how deep you guys get within your banter.
Yeah,
intelligent conversations, you know. But yeah, it's just what comes first, and I think it's a mix of both, probably. But so that's still to this day, I have to keep it in check, and you know, I have to take responsibility for the asshole that I am, you know, because you know, Mr. Smiles is dead now, Neil's dead now, you know, eventually my mom will be dead. Then it's like, who am I going to blame? You can't blame it on your parents, and regardless of what my childhood, now I am the way I am. So entering into new relationships, I can tell people, you know, I have this anger problem sometimes, and when it happens, this is what I need you to do. And it's almost like having another person in your relationship, and if they're not okay with me being that way, then we're not going to be together, you know.
That's wild, and that's mature. That's weirdly mature. Like I can know I have an anger problem, but it's harder for me to tell someone I have an anger problem and tell them what I'm doing psychologically. Hey, by the way, I had a rough this. By the way, I might do this.
Yeah.
Can you react this way, and then let me know how you react with this? That's a very open thing. I mean, for your sake, that's really good. You know what I mean? Like that's like being super open, and I think.
Yeah, I think that's the only way. I think that's the only way to recovering from it or being able to. You just have to be an open book about it. You have to be really open-minded and honest. And I think that's what helped me with my path compared to my siblings is I went the drug route and I started experimenting with drugs at a very young age. That gets you out of your mind, you know. That gets you out of. Oh,
I didn't know this.
Right here. Oh yeah, so yeah, just the
heavy drugs. We don't gotta get crazy.
Or
like smoking a little doobies or like.
Oh yeah. Well, it started with the alcohol and then oh man, when I found
drinking alcohol, I literally was I'm doing this.
But for a teenager, alcohol is different. Normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I remember, but meeting marijuana for the first time was just, then I could dissociate from reality. Then all of a sudden, my environment didn't have to be abusive. It didn't have to be bad. I could put
Didn't have to
Christmas
be
lights up
anything.
in my room and just be stoned and get
Hmm.
into music. And that's, I think, where a lot of my
What were
artistic,
you into? I know this is like stupid, but this is like
music
important.
wise,
Yeah, what were you into? I'm really sorry.
I was
When you were
really into
getting
the
early
Beatles. Really
really?
into the Beatles initially, and
Awesome.
then
And what's weird is that's a throwback. Is that weird that it's a throwback?
yeah,
You seem
it
to be
is
like
weird.
attracted to the past. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just literally putting
Just
ice in my
pouring
drink.
ice.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
No,
You got to
but
keep
like,
it iced. You got to keep
I
it
know,
iced.
I do.
Mm,
But
yeah.
like, what else?
Beatles, and then I was really blossoming in the 90s, so I also
Oh,
suffer from what I like to call the Kurt Cobain complex as a
word. That's
yeah.
totally
So
fine. That's cool.
I mean, now it's not like I think a lot of people, they hit their 30s and they continue to listen to the music they listened to when they were a teenager. I'm on to a lot of
Some
Grunge.
different
people
things
do.
now.
Some people do. What do you do now? I'm sorry.
Now I'm just
Let me know.
everything, but mostly
Everyone
instrumentals.
says everything. If I told you like
Yeah.
you into like a goblin core, like you know what I mean,
Uh-huh.
you'd be like,
Yeah,
really?
I guess you're right. That's kind of a cop out. It'd be
It
better
is.
to say what I'm not into than what I am. But
Sure.
um, so I guess what I'm really into is stuff that sounds like it's from a different planet or really weird
Kinda
stuff.
cool.
I really like Mogwai
Yeah,
or
I know mine, Godspeed You Black Emperor and all those
yeah,
like
kind
that
of
stuff.
Godspeed You Black Emperor. Maybe not quite as hard
Not
as
the
that. And then
world, but I'm just trying
yeah,
to
yeah, those, that same kind of like prog rock a little bit, but then
yeah, okay.
also I just like
Post-rock, prog rock. Okay.
yeah, jazz and
That's cool.
classical a little bit. I like to put classical on just to
That's
relax, and
cool. And
I
let
think I
you shut
pretend I
down.
like classical, you know. Um,
That's fine.
I
You
think
if you
yeah,
pretend to like something enough, I think you actually like it.
yeah,
You get there
Especially
eventually.
something like classical. There's no way if you let someone listen to classical for the first time and they didn't like music and they didn't know theory and they didn't know anything, you'd be like,
uh,
oh, that was great. Like no one really likes it.
yeah,
That's like a learned thing. Like that's like an intellectual thing. That's like a multi-level thing. You can't be
yeah.
like,
That's what's weird about it, and also it's like almost like the de-evolution of humans, because classical music was
oh,
incredibly
dude,
complex,
wild.
and now it's just four chords everywhere. You know what I mean?
But
But
think about this. I
Hmm.
mean, the average how many people were listening to music back then?
uh,
It
In
was performed by
19
an
like
actual
oh
person.
nine or whatever the hell
oh
it was.
yeah,
It was like 400 people listening to music. You literally knew all the people listening to music.
Yeah.
You could
uh-huh,
name them. They were music majors.
yeah,
Now it's like 4 billion people listen. Some
yeah.
of them are skateboarders, some of them are emos, some of them are this. Like it's like you got to just
Commonplace.
pronounce something easy for everybody to listen to.
Yeah, you gotta make it easy, and, before
Yeah.
it was for the eating that cucumber sandwiches, at parties, and it was for the kings, it was for the
Right, right.
yeah,
But those guys were on their shit. I mean, they were making music for years. That's generations of like secret stuff
uh,
stored up, learned, a lifetime of learning,
uh,
passed on, like mix and match. Let's use some old stuff. Like that stuff's complex shit.
yeah,
Nowadays, it's like, yo, I'm 14. I want to listen to something. Boom, give me something good,
yeah,
something poppy,
yeah.
something
Give
good.
me something
Boom.
poppy.
And I don't hate it. It's what it is. It's something
Yeah, it
different.
is what it is. That's it, yeah, I had so much hatred I had to get through over the years too for music, for certain
And that's a
types of
Kurt
music.
Cobain thing, dude.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when I say the Kurt Cobain complex, what I'm talking about is this fallacy almost that creative people have. They feel like it's a rite of passage to suffer in order to create good artwork. Um, and then you have Bradley Noel. He definitely had the Kurt Cobain complex where he felt like he had to get into heroin to
Did he?
understand. Yeah, and
I
he
know he did.
overdosed from
I didn't
heroin.
know.
Yeah,
I know. I didn't know if he felt like it made him a better musician. I
yeah,
never know.
I got really into when I watched a documentary about him, but
Was it
whatever.
a
That's
YouTube documentary? I mean, we never know with YouTube documentaries.
yeah, no, it was before the YouTubes, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Either way, what we're getting at before we go so off track
oh yeah,
again,
very off track.
totally getting like, but what we're getting at is there's like
There's
I
an
almost
element to
want to say
people.
complex, like you said. It's not. It's an element. There you go.
Yeah,
For
Mhm.
there's
people, it's a counterculture thing.
There's a formation of yourself that happens. We had an episode on privacy, and one of the things that surprised me is that if you don't have privacy, you can't develop yourself. So by taking drugs, maybe you're leaving the area that's like the environment that's distracting you from understanding yourself. So by taking it out, you can kind of figure out what's going on, even though it might be bad for you, and then maybe make reasonable understandings to change your life.
Or creative moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that is where you get tied up in that Kurt Cobain complex kind of thing, or that I need to suffer to feel. The best songs come from when you're suffering.
Pain,
Yeah, that pain, and because there is something to that. I think it's a generalization for a reason. There's something really about melancholy and about the beauty of pain and the painful stories that we experience.
You don't get that many songs about melancholy or like grunge nowadays. It's weird.
Yeah, nowadays you don't. I mean, you get a lot of torch love songs, breakup songs.
It'll come full circle, guys. There'll be another phase.
Not like a Black Hole Sun or something like that.
100% sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
I mean,
like off kilter.
So I did remember what I wrote in my not notes. I didn't write notes.
Okay.
But I remember. Okay. So this is it's like a change direction a little bit, but it might tie in.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
One weird thing that keeps coming up in the story of Marie, comes up in a lot of people's lives, is religion.
Yes.
We did a whole episode on religion. She's a lesbian. She's a lesbian. Homosexuality is the ultimate sin. There are some people who are pretty awful about it. They're like, you are the scum of the earth. You will live in the third tier, or whatever the tier was. And I was like,
yeah,
like a level of hell or something from some reason.
Well, here's my ultimate question. It seemed like religion wasn't for her. Like for Sandy, I imagine the three of us talking right here, religion isn't necessarily our thing. For her, it kept seeming like she kept coming back to it.
Almost a necessity.
Yeah, like she wanted it. Even if it didn't work for her. She got married for that reason. She had kids for that reason. She stayed with Mr. Smiley for that reason. And then at the end, she found her ultimate love of her life girlfriend, who was a minister. And I was like, stay away from religion. But
what's wrong with you? No.
Yeah. Good point.
You want to shake her, Stop it.
One thing I always think is there's a weird balance between what people think religion will do for them, what it can be for them, and what it is for them. And religion's, it's like a tipping point. You can use religion to give you hope. Channel your energies and
use it as a tool
and repent. But some people use it to be a real dickhead. Some people use it to control other people.
Power.
Yeah. And I don't know where she fell in that. And I was like, wow, she kept coming back to religion, even though it told her to go away almost.
Yeah. And that's, and that's something that just blows my mind too. I was trying to get to the bottom of that in the podcast. And as I've been promoting on Twitter and reaching out, and there's whole communities of homosexual people that are still Mormon, and they call themselves like the Latter-day Gays instead of the Latter-day Saints. Right. And I've been messaging back and forth with a few people asking like, why don't you just go? There's a lot of new age religions that are totally cool with, because if they're still in that religion, and the religion's softening to the idea of being gay, they still can't have sex with a man, and they still can't marry a man, or a woman and marry a woman.
Right.
So what's the point? I mean, and
they're beholden to their religion. There's like a form of compliance there where they feel comfortable with what they know.
You used it, the big word. Come on, bring it up, Dan.
The compliance. Yes. Yeah. I wanted to know more about this word, compliance.
So there's an element of the story where there's a moment where your mom actually decided to leave, and then this ties in with you not being able to call her because your dad was in the house, so she would tell you to call an 800 number, which was really intelligent by your mom's point of view. As she got away from your father, it seemed like she became more intelligent. She picked a job that paid really well, that was easy to get into. I think she became like a masseuse.
Actually, the first one was Domino's, free pizza.
Yeah, Domino's, but that was still kind of tied up in the divorce
Okay.
there.
It was before the full. Okay.
Yeah.
So once she was able to like get away from the environment and look at it like third person, you're able to like analyze things and determine that maybe like the best choices in life are the ones that you make and not the ones that are given to you. And it really seemed like your mom understood that the moment she stepped away from the situation.
Mm-hmm. I think so. And then I think she briefly discusses how she kind of needed it back again. So she attracted it now in lesbian relationships, and it took her many lesbian relationships that she went through. She met Neil in women's clothing.
Female.
Neil, she met
Neil.
the female Neil. Mm-hmm.
She found
And
other Neil?
it's weird. It's almost like after a certain amount of I don't know if it's post-traumatic stress, or I don't know what anything about that either. It would have been interesting to have a psychologist in on this podcast, you know. And now we take a break for doctor, whatever, you know. And
maybe we can.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just it's mind blowing and I think that's part of human nature. Just where
you're kind of indoctrinated into a certain way of thinking, and you accept.
Indoctrinated is a great word.
Yeah, and I think it's not just Mormons; it's everyone. I think also everybody can relate to that feeling of wanting to be a certain way over and over constantly. You don't want to be the version of yourself that you are. You want to be something better, but you can never achieve it. You know, you can never get there. Like I'm going to quit smoking, or I swear I'm going to lose this weight this year. I'm going to, you know, that's the basic stuff that most people can relate to. But in the extreme cases, it's I'm going to get out of this abusive marriage, and it just never happened. You know.
Real quick, we like to do an aside every episode for supplier.
Oh, great!
The D series. It's a Japanese blade. You can look it up. It's the GH16308.
Ooh.
It's made of folded Japanese steel. What I've noticed is, I don't know if anyone at home paying attention.
Use that to cut things?
Looking to buy a
Is
new
that for
blade,
food?
use to cut things, right? Ordinary paper.
Butter.
It was butter. Anyway.
That sliced right through that paper.
Yeah. It doesn't just stop there.
Hand,
this thing will help you with your money problems. You cut right through it. Just trust me, it did.
I'm worried about your hand.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Looked like you
I'm
almost cut
very
yourself
careful
there.
with this blade. It's not just any blade. I know how to handle it. You check the guide. Your ex-wife's Jeep Grand Cherokee? Cut through it like butter. Boom! Oh, we got it. We got it. Last thing I'm telling you, folks, is that this thing can cut through anything. You're all at home saying it can probably cut through some things, but not anything. Let's see.
Anything. Literal.
Oh,
like
did it.
Clean, rugged cut. As smooth as a man's beard.
If you put in the coupon code WRECKT, wrecked, you will get 18% off thanks to the UnPanders. Anyway, it's the Misaki D series blade. It's the GH16308. Check it out. Put in the coupon code. We get full credit. We'll give some money back to whoever.
We get a cut.
We get a cut. We get a cut. Slice, dice. If you got problems in your relationships, you have issues in your life,
cut the cord.
This is the thing. It'll fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just buy this and you'll be good for life. Okay? You're good. Thanks, folks. Tuning back, if you wanted to cut out relationships in your life.
Yes.
Was that made of plastic? Or was that a real knife?
It was my kid's knife. Sorry. It's from Melissa and Doug. It's a really cute
knife. Made of wood.
I'm practicing for when we get sponsors.
So. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
It's how I
thought it was legit. I really did.
I mean, sponsors.
The one thing I was a little concerned by was how specific you were with the Jeep Grand Cherokee. You know?
I just wanted to actually my sister's car. It was the first person I thought of. Like,
it has a certain character to it. I saw your ex-wife.
Yeah, you felt her.
But now that you said it's your sister, I'm not going to say I don't like your ex-wife. I'm sure.
Could
Sure
still
she
be.
was.
Could still be.
Ironically, my ex-girlfriend of 8 years
Also
is dating
drove.
women now.
Oh,
Just
that's an
saying.
interesting thing. You know, it's
So
like you.
wait, let's get into that. Like, she's a lesbian, right?
Yeah.
Your mother.
Yes.
The whole story. She marries a man. She dates men, and it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
If she had dated or married a nicer guy, do you think like she would never know? She would know she was a lesbian, but do you think it would have just
Yeah, if he
Yeah,
wasn't
I think.
abusive,
married forever?
do you
Is that
think it
what
would
you
have
Yeah,
been?
I think there was even a line, just single line, where she says, "If he was
if he
nice,
wasn't mean, right?
I would have
Mean.
stayed married to him." And maybe even because she did find a way to love him in ways, obviously to be able to have children with him.
Sure.
Um, there had to have been some level of love there, even if it
Which
was
is
the love you have for somebody who's torturing you. It's still love. And I
true.
think, but if it was a nice, and there's so many kind, gentle, nice Mormon men out there. I mean, probably the majority of them are nice, where they have
Like 50%.
partnerships.
We'll say 50%.
Yeah, 50%. I mean, and that's just humanity. That's not just, most people are just assholes.
True.
But yeah, I think she would have stayed with him and would have been fine. Always missing that piece of her heart. And
Could you sense
that's
that
one
as a
thing.
kid? Wouldn't I mean? I don't know at what point you figured out that your mom was a lesbian.
She said young. Are you talking about when he figured out? Or when
Yeah,
she did?
I'm curious
Me
about
or her?
your perspective.
Yeah, from my perspective, I never really sensed it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's not like a.
But I did sense there was just no intimacy between her and my father, which I thought was really strange. But I thought that's just because he was a prick. But what was fun is when she did come out, we had a lot of fun with that. And and she lived in California. We lived in Los Angeles and Hollywood, so we'd go sit on Melrose and check out the hot chicks. And she'd be like, "Oh, she's a little old for you." I'm like, "She's a little young for you, Mom."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun to break those boundaries, and then that was strange too, because that made me sexuality, because you sort of base your sexuality off what your parents teach you.
Yeah, a little bit.
Don't
A little bit of a delay here. I don't know if this is an interruption or not. Let's see if they come back. Oh. There we go.
There we are.
Nice
Hello.
long delay.
Okay, long delay there. I thought that I would just keep talking, but as I saw the delay, it just got awkward. I felt like I was talking to myself, and
We're really critical in that moment.
Yeah, for a minute I wondered if any of this was even real, and then I got really confused, and the LSD kicked back in again. Oh yeah, I never finished that. There was lots of drugs. There's marijuana, LSD. Eventually, I had to go to rehab for crystal meth. I mean, Jesus, just Sandy and the love of her life had to put me in rehab. It was a rehab in South Central. They called the last house on the block.
How do you?
I'm curious too. I've never been addicted to any of that.
But how do you do rehab? They literally put you in a house. They don't let you leave, and it's like a week long, and then the first 3 days are shit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so it was. I see. That's the thing. I thought it was going to be like a hospital type situation. I'm from Utah initially. No, it was a house in South Central, and it was the only bed they could find me. And it was just usually you have to go to a detox place first because they don't want you coming off the hard stuff in front of the patients. But in my case, they just let me sleep there for a few days, which they normally don't do. And it was supposed to be like 3 to 6 months, but I checked out early after a month. And I haven't used the crystal meth since then. That was very early in my I was my early 20s, so I would never. I mean, it was just a strange phase, and it's just incredibly addictive, that drug,
So, like,
too. But
give us like a hint at the positives and the negatives of it.
well, the positives of it
You're
are,
awake for 4 days? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, for me, the positives were the literary aspect of it. I at that point fancied myself a writer, and ooh,
You could keep writing
You could
throughout.
write for 4.
yeah.
Oh,
And
dude.
I'd hop on the bus and the metro, and yeah, just scribble in my notebook, and
Was it Hunter S. Thompson? It's kind of like
yeah, it's kind of like the beat thing. I
binge.
fancied myself, Hunter S. Thompson for sure. Um, I was watching Naked Lunch too at that period of time, I'm sure, but they, and so and then the other thing is sleep deprivation is a really fun, high, especially when you get beyond the 3-4 day mark.
How
You start
much time did
laughing.
you stay awake?
Probably 3 or 4 days, and it was only a month and a half that I was on this stuff.
And then what's like a crash? What's like a crash like after you've been awake for 4 days?
It's like a
48
4-day crash. Yeah, it's like a 48-hour crash, something like that probably. It's weird though because
Are you completely disoriented? Like the moment you wake up, you're just like you have no idea where a week went.
yeah, it's kind of like
Probably have to
you
do the
expend
running.
you expend a lot more of your energy, you expend a lot more of your juice, and then it catches up with you and you pay back for it like 10 times, so you have this like super fast moving brain that can your erudition and your vocabulary is just heightened like crazy, and then all of a sudden you're just
in the
dumb.
hole.
Yeah, you're just
You're dumb as fuck.
you're just in a hole. Yeah. You don't even know anything,
Yeah. That's
Uh-huh.
weird.
Yeah, so that's something for me, and I think looking back at all that the struggles I had with drugs was what allowed me to be so open-minded with some of those things we were talking about earlier, and just that you have to kind of come to terms with so many different things when you're trying to stop being addicted to something. You have to find out where all that's coming from, and so I was just rehabs and the 12-step programs and all that, and
So can you drink anymore? Or you out on that? Though?
no, I can't do the drinking anymore either because
I'm really sorry. I offered you.
oh yeah, no, it's fine. I get offered it all the time in my field, and I just say no thanks, and that's it, or I don't drink, but it's not really that big of a deal anymore. It's been a couple of years now since I've had a drink, but it's because there's a difference, it's like imagine Will Ferrell in Old School, once it hits the lips and we're going streaking.
Yeah.
There are some people that just have that deep disposition to it that, and for me, it doesn't take very long. I just immediately hit rock bottom with that stuff. So
You go hard.
I go real hard. Yeah.
I find that sometimes to indulge is great, but sometimes to just stop is like, hey.
Yeah. I mean, you're casually having a drink. I would have had like 12 by now, probably. Maybe 8.
Tip the scale, and the scale would have gotten stuck.
Yeah. Right. I mean, 8's minimum. 8, you have to have at least 8.
I mean, 12. I mean, that sounds reasonable, right? 14, 15, sure.
But so now I do the kombucha and all
which
that.
Flavor was it? Can you show us which flavor it was?
Oh, it's coffee. Coffee with a K. Kombucha.
Actually, I've never had that flavor, so
it's really good.
Is it?
Yeah, this is the Beverly Hills brand GT's kombucha.
So weird. That's in the 7-Eleven in PA.
Mm-hmm.
Just type
it's
in
good
the
stuff.
UnPander's discount code and you get 5% off.
Yeah, if you type in
discount code
poop
you
or poop hard kombucha.
Poop hard.
Jesus. Poop hard.
Poop hard Jesus is the code.
To sum up the episode, because I think we're drawing to an end and we're getting scattered.
All sorts of scattered. I didn't know we were going to get into drug addiction and all that. I'm sorry.
It happens on natural progression here.
It's a natural progression here, guys. I was going to try and do the copy everything Dan says.
But he stopped.
I'm a receiver of knowledge.
Progression. I'm a sleeper progression. Anyway,
do the quick recap. I figured that's where Nick was going.
No, I was gonna end. I wanted one more discussion before
One
we
more?
stopped.
Okay, we'll keep it quick. We'll
One
keep it
more. Okay.
concise.
One more.
I'm curious, like, when your first option of being like out of the house, away from all the crap that you thought was normal life. You're gonna Nick is
But
saying
that's
no
your
right now.
normal.
No, but
No, I'm
there's
just
a
saying
moment.
that's your
So
normal life.
for me,
Have
there's
you
a
been?
moment when I went to college and I got away from my parents, and like you realize like how sheltered you are. You see all these different people. You realize that life is a lot different than what you expected, and there's so many
Okay.
options for being happier or even
Everyone listening
sadder.
home, tune in.
Or being anything different,
Yeah.
it's so hard, the shadows and the reflections on the wall of your cave you're in is all you really know, and so
Jesus Christ, we
Allegory.
on Plato? Is that
Yeah.
Plato? I don't even know.
It's Plato.
Come on.
Yeah, allegory of the
I
cave.
don't even know.
But so for me, the first time was when I was 17. I got in a huge fight with my dad, and I ripped the toupee off of his head. And
He had a toupee? Oh my
I
god.
should add
I
to
had
that.
no
a
idea
toupee.
that Smiley had a toupee. Holy
Yes, Miles had a toupee, man. And he was a big old fat. He was a big old fatty with a toupee, and he hated fat people. He just hated fat people,
Even though he was one.
even though he was fat. Yeah.
Huh.
But anyway, so we got in a huge fight, and ripping the toupee off his head is what gave me, because his adrenaline, I beat the hell out of him, and then he was chasing me, but when he got outside, he realized his hair wasn't on, so I was able to get away. And
Did he stop? He couldn't be like seen in public without a toupee?
yeah, he couldn't be seen in public, so I got away to a friend's house, and I had $600 in a bank account, and I got on a Greyhound bus, and
You never went back?
to LA. Yeah, I didn't go back to Utah for a long time after that. And when I did go back to Utah, I was an adult, and had could enjoy it again. LA kind of ate me alive.
Like seeing him again, what was that like?
It was just weird. It was just a lot of dissociation and like compartmentalization. Just kind of like, hey, Dad.
Just felt removed.
Oh, yeah. You just you don't talk about it. We never talked about any of it. He almost, after he would go on one of his psychotic breakdowns the next day, it was like it didn't happen. It was really strange. I almost thought it was dissociative identity disorder. Yeah, so that was so cool to get off the Greyhound bus in downtown LA, and in Utah, especially at the time, there was like one black person that lived here. It's grown in diversity quite substantially since then. But so as this little suburban gringo from Utah, I was just like, whoa. And it was just amazing, and there's almost just like this collective consciousness to the city too. You can't help but just feel it in your blood, and so that was cool, because at that point it was like anything's possible, all possibilities of life, you can just become anything you want to become, and it was just pure freedom.
And your
it
mom
really
was
was a city
there,
of
right?
angels for me.
So,
Well, here I'll end it. I'll end it here. What do you wish for your kid? Like, what do you want her and or him? Future. I'm giving you future kids.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You're giving kids. There you go.
Yeah.
Couple months, you might have another kid.
Things are doing pretty good. I'm feeling randy.
But like, what do you want for them?
So that's something that this whole process of the show's made me think about a lot, is like, man, and I don't want any specific things. I don't think, like, I don't care who they want to have sex with. I don't care where they go to college, or what they want to do for a profession. All I would really hope to do as a parent, I think, is to provide them coping mechanisms of how to deal with failure, and how to pick themselves up, and how to deal with heartbreak, and teach them to love themselves. You know what I mean? If I can impart that on them, that they're special and that they are all they need, and give them that power to go through life, then they're ahead of the game, and they'll be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah,
hopefully.
nice message.
Do you want them to hear the story of you, Steven?
Maybe, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, honestly, like,
we do this a lot because we've done 100 episodes, and there's things that
We
maybe
do
I
all
didn't
these
want to.
episodes, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to share this with Dan because
the
my
sexual
kid could see
episode.
it.
Yeah.
What if your kid
Uh,
sees this? Like, do you feel like if your kid sees this, it's like weird? Or are you like,
no, I don't think so because I don't know. Maybe I don't think so though.
it's weird. It's not
It's
bad,
weird.
right?
It's weird, but it's not bad. It's not. I mean, it's just weird. It's just kind of like, but at the same time, eventually, I think that's the relationship. It's weird to, and that's something that my mom and I have, which is she can easily talk to me about how my dad would only want to have sex with her right after a hysterectomy.
That was the most effed up part. Wait,
Yeah.
never mind. I don't want to end the episode. I
Oh,
want to
okay.
talk about this
Rewind.
because this went through my head the whole time I was watching the episode. I was like, what's with the music? I was like, is this royalty free sounds? And it was your friend or
Yeah, it was Stefano Garroni.
yeah. And
Uh-huh.
I noticed individual songs we played at certain times and like the
Mood. The mood.
It was like a bass heavy part when it was like
Yeah.
the bag. And I was like, oh shit, I know it's getting deep when
Yeah, there was a lot of thematic material.
Yeah.
Mr. Smiles has had his own theme in there.
And one review on iTunes was like, what's with the effing sound on the thing? It's distracting. I don't like it. I was like, come on,
Those
dude.
people.
I was like, let people
I
do
know.
this.
I'm just like, I'm
So
not going to read the reviews. I'm like, that's fine.
Don't.
That's fine.
But what was the process for that? He's recording his own stuff and recording.
Yeah, so it was kind of a process of and something I sort of picked up with some work that I was doing on editing film, which I really like to edit film after the composer has worked on it for a while. So you sort of make the cuts to the music. So we sort of did a lot of back and forth. So it was like, this is the basic chunk of what episode 1's going to be. Why don't you have it for a little while, but don't stick to it. Just, and then throw me back some of your files. So it was like a little bit of us working together, making something really nice happen.
Yeah.
But I just love it.
Who is he, by the way?
He's just this crazy musician out here, one of the best.
Friend of yours?
Yeah, friend of mine, really. Yeah,
okay.
Very close friend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And he's trying to find more avenues to make money as a composer and as a musician. He's been kind of playing in bands, and now he's like, shit, I'm getting old, I need money.
Some of his stuff was awesome. Some of it was like, all right. Some of it was awesome.
Yeah.
I never said it was bad.
For a 9-episode series, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Name again?
Yeah.
Out there.
Stefano Garroni.
That's Italian Garroni.
We're Americans here. We don't like to look things up.
Yeah. There's accentuation.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's Stefano Garroni. So it's Garoni, and Stefano is Stefano. Cool. So you could do at Stefano Garroni and find him on Twitter, I think.
Like,
and then
he made some pretty sweet tracks. Actually, pretty good. They were useful.
They're useful.
I feel the evil in his friggin' bass line when you talked about Mr. Smiles. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. I was really I think that was in like a Neapolitan key signature or something.
I don't know what signature it was. I was like, holy shit. I was like, every time I heard that song and it came up often, I was like, oh shit, we got the evil coming up.
Yeah,
and it was like
evil.
I felt it.
And I like that added the cool sense to the evil, which was interesting. So you're a bass player, so you is it just bass?
Yeah, the bass. Yeah, I'm only a bass player. I have
only a bass player. Okay. Okay, so that's where you're.
I'll just keep 4 for you. Can I keep 4 for you? Can I just snare in a 2 and the 4? We're good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if you ask me to do more than that, we're out. So.
Okay. All right.
Regardless, I thought the music was great. The production was great. What you did was great. Talking to your mother was actually pretty great.
He had a good impact. Made a difference.
Interviewed by the Unpanders was actually pretty great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've had a fun time, man. This was fun.
Shit. Oh my god, these guys are so good.
Yeah, it's been cool. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
I need a sticker or something.
Oh, that's an idea.
Coupon code WRECK.
Correct. Or hard poo, if you're looking for
Hard poo
coffee
Jesus.
kombucha.
Drinking some kombucha.
Yeah.
rock shit. Yeah.
Anyway, to sum it all up, your mother had a great life, awful life.
Yeah.
Awful life.
Duality.
Great,
It's a
great,
duality.
awful
You have to
life.
experience
Yeah.
the worst to feel the
Little bit
best.
Yeah.
Made a great story. We can check your socials here or here, Dan.
There's
tell me
the
if I'm right
Story of Sandra is in the video.
Story of Sandra.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. We're talking to Steven the
You
son.
came on our show. Do you have anything real quick to ask us before we roll out? I mean, we covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did. We covered all sorts of stuff. No, nothing really. It sounds like you have a big backlog of episodes
Are you
that
gay?
I'm anxious to hear. No. Are either one of you gay?
No.
Yeah, both of us.
Oh, both of you together. That's
Dan-
what I was hoping. Okay.
Dan
no.
does not know it, but we're gonna get into it.
Yeah,
One
that's
night.
why we're
one
sitting
of
so
these
close to each other, about 2,000 miles
Mhm.
away.
Mhm.
We're
Yeah,
meant
no,
to
I
be
mean,
together about
Yeah,
that
you know,
format.
I've often been thought of as ambiguous, and
Mm-hmm.
in my younger days I was flamboyant.
See it by your microphone.
Yeah, see, and even the glasses. But see, the glasses are more gay. See, what? It's less gay now,
He
right?
took him off. It took him a whole episode. He took him off. That's good.
Yeah, right. But no, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I used to tell people I'm just waiting to meet the right guy, or I'm saving,
That's a good one.
or I'm saving that for my 40s.
Do not tell your wife or your children.
She's like, oh no,
Yeah,
it's not going to go over well.
I know.
Yeah.
It's weird how this whole thing works together. It's weird how it all ties back to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's almost like we all are part of an Unpanders episode. And yet here we are.
Mm-hmm.
We're live. We're here. We're the Unpanders.
Doing a podcast.
That's deep.
This
That's
is what we do.
Yeah.
Is it coincidence? Maybe. Are we all gay? Maybe. Maybe not.
Maybe everybody's a little gay.
Just a tiny bit.
Just little experiences.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's
Come
all
on,
life
you know
is.
you're a little gay. Come on, everyone, listeners.
I'm
Just be a little gay.
Thank
Just get
you for
really
joining
close to the mic and just admit it. It's fine.
in. Thanks, folks, for listening.
Yeah.
We like
Thanks
you.
for having me, guys.
We
This
like
has been
you.
really fun.
You're
We
welcome.
like
Thank you
you
for having
a lot.
having
Thanks
the
for
time to
tuning
come
in,
on.
folks.
All
Check
right.
out Story of Sandra. Check out Unpanders. Throw money at just the Unpanders, not Story of Sandra. Whatever you want to do.
That's fine.
You want to
That's not
buy
a big deal.
the
Fine with that.
ginseng blade?
Yeah.
Let me know.
So you're the only one he has from Alyssa and Doug.
I love you, folks.
We like you.
Friggin' love you.
Thanks for watching and listening.